Hello, I'm John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to Intel and Insights with Juan O'Savin, published weekly at johnmichaelchambers.com and every Sunday at patriot.tv. You can also find this and my other broadcasts on my Roku and Rumble channels, along with many other social media, audio, and video sharing platforms. Now, be sure to visit thejennifermack.com, M-A-C, thejennifermack.com, and avail yourself to the very best in MAGA material. Now, to that point, before I jump into this important subject with Juan, we can see on the screen the Magador as a beautiful blanket. Why don't we chat about that for a moment and also dovetail us into the coin. Everyone should own silver that can acquire some silver coins because it's extremely important for other reasons we'll save in an economic report. And Juan has some collectible silver coins that he can talk about as well. It's worth a few minutes here before we launch into things to surround yourself with things you believe in and beautiful art with a message. Juan, take it from here, and then we'll jump into Kamala Harris.
Well, the Magador theme, we talked about it last week with Trump as the Magador. I think that's the way that we'll actually remember Trump in the years to come. There's lots of beautiful illustrations of him and all sorts of fun, cool things. But the reality is he's the one that has taken on the deep state bull and this Baal Moloch figure. And, he's out there doing battle. In fact, it's just because it's fun. This is actually maybe my favorite thing on the in Jennifer's store. There you got the deep state.
Nice.
And over in the corner here, you've got a Q in the breath.
Beautiful.
Okay. And that bull of heaven that Trump is fighting. Trump as the Magador. I think it's just really fun imagery, but it's also very true to what's going on at this moment. And while many of us are fighting together, at the center of the conflict, the one that's in the stadium, that's the center of attention, that's in the ring, and it's life and death. Do you think for a second, John, that if this election, Trump in that time frame doesn't come back to power, that they will let him or his family survive in any way? They'll throw him in prison for forever, find a reason to execute him for something. They would wipe out the family, have them begging bread on the streets, if not wiping them out. But as he has said, they're really not coming after him. They're coming after all the rest of us. He's just in the way. And that's the fight that we're in. It's a fight, good and evil. And the other thing I enjoy is the challenge coins, the 2024 Magadors out there now. But we just brought out another coin. I should have mentioned on the last show, but I didn't. We have a colorized version of the second coin we did which has Melania on the back of the coin in the dress covered in cubes and goes from dark to light. That new coin is really cool, and I was actually not too excited about doing anything colorized. It's the same 999 silver, the same system and the same blanks as are used by the U.S. Mint for their 1 ounce coins, which they sell them for more than we do. So anyway, it's a pretty good buy. But I wasn't that excited about the colorized version because it makes it look more like a token when that's not what it is. It's real silver money. But in the one case of just that picture of Melania in the dress, the colors, the cubes need to stand out. I went ahead and authorized to do a piece of art there, and it's actually turned out amazing. So we've had our first run samples got to us, and we should have the actual coins in the next few days. Well, actually, by the time this broadcast, we'll have had them for a week, so we'll have that inventory in. And so as long as the price of silver stays approximately where it is right now, we'll have them for that price. And that we only did a limited run on this particular version because I don't know whether it's something people will like or not. I think they will, but it was fit the theme that we had for this one thing. So anyway, that's there you go. There's the commercial.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I know the patriots across this country have enormous love and respect for Melania Trump, our First Lady. And we know what they did to her, as well as, of course, to the president over these last 7 years. So I think you're going to need a second run on these coins, Juan. I think they're going to be very popular. And I want
the only thing I will say too, John, when I did Melania on the back cover of my book with that dress, remember they've done, and I'm not even exaggerating, 1,000 different magazine covers with the tranny Michael. And they've done the same thing in France with the wife of Macron, and others, trying to fool you in plain sight. It's part of their religion. Yet they, after Melania was First Lady, they just totally ignored her. You didn't go to the magazine stand and see any pictures of Melania. It was hard to find. Yet she was the flagstaff for America with every dress she wore. That was the coded communication from Trump in the language of semaphore, which is the language of flags. And then that dress that she wore in the last moments of President Trump's presidency, when they got back to Mar-a-Lago, got off Air Force One, the message there is the message of my book. And I've told the story many times, but I think it being in the coin the way it is, it becomes a conversation piece. And part of the role that this audience has, those of you who understand the moment we're in, you sometimes use something like my book, which is a coffee table thing that people can see. It's not intrusive. They come to your place, they're in your turf, they see something interesting, and they open it up. It's not like a book you put on the shelf. And the coin is something similar. It's a conversation starter. And the blanket conversation starter lets them know where you're at. But all of the various themes that are in there become things that trigger for the conversation and move things along. And then, by the way, I'm just telling you, of all the things on the site, that is a super high quality blanket. It's just really fun. It's super warm, very durable. So, we've watched this one, dozens of times. It looks like that. It comes out that way every time. So it's not thin and cheap. It's a very high quality. Everybody that gets one, they just rave about it. So I'm just telling you, if you just want to get one thing and you don't want the coin or something like that, you'll use that blanket. I've got lots of pictures of friends and that have got it and used it all the time. And especially coming into the fall with the football games and like that, you throw that thing over your shoulder, you'll have a lot of conversation. And by the way, the vast majority of Americans believe this is the answer. This man is at the forefront. He symbolically represents so much that we all believe in. That I've never had anybody say anything bad when I've worn my Megador jacket. I always kind of expected it. I figured there'd be some pushback. It has never once happened. I wear it in airports. I wear it at public events. Just out going to the grocery store, and everybody, where did you get that? What? Do you know where to find it? It's amazing. So, and the only place you can get it's at thejennifermack.com. Again, I put the at the beginning, but anyway, enough commercial. On to business, bro.
Well, yes. I'll just comment on that, and we'll jump into the heart of the matter. I've got to get that blanket. I made a note to myself, and here's why. While I am living in Southeast Asia below the equator, it's rather warm here, although I'm in the northern part of the country, I like the AC run, where I'm nice and cool. And my fiance, it's a little too cool for her, having grown up there her entire life in this environment. So I'm going to pick up one of those. While I'm going to text you my niece's address and get it to her. It's quick and easy for you, and she'll have it shipped out here to me over here in Thailand.
You know
Anyway,
what's funny, John? I'm sitting here laughing because I have the same issue with Jennifer. I'll have it cooled down. It's just right, and she's got freaking Arctic gear on.
same here, same here. But we got to keep everybody happy, and it's easier to cover up with a blanket than it is to cool yourself off.
Well, she keeps it on her side of the bed. I tell her I can't take it. It's too hot for me, and she's like, "Oh no, it's perfect now." So anyway, yeah, a lot of fun.
Well, great. Listen, folks, for those that may be a new audience to me and to 107, now that we've been picked up by Patriot.tv, a great new news network that has got a lot of potential to replace some of the dead and dying mainstream media. So, to those that don't know Juan has been serving this nation since the time of Ronald Reagan. He's very well connected, and I will leave it at that. His clandestine assignments and self imposed directives, many of which are unknown to the public, play a critical role in protecting this nation and its interests for decades. He's a good friend and a most valuable voice and resource for us in the new media. Again, we broadcast each and every week. Thanks a lot, Juan. We're going to talk about, Kamala Harris. I want to set it up. Lots of moving pieces here. There are an estimated 4 actors who have played the part of Joe Biden since his reported execution for treason and crimes against humanity. And now, in this so-called movie that is playing out before us, Biden has stepped aside from his candidacy for president in the 2024 election. Presently, and this may change, Kathleen Kamala, as I like to call her, seems to be the replacement for the Democrat Party, at least at this moment. Let's discuss all things Kamala, Jamaican Indian versus black, wonderful white family she actually has. If you look at the photographs, aren't there birth issues? All the cackling stuff and all the other noise aside, I talked to Scott McKay recently, and I think he said she's just completely intellectually bankrupt. But let's discuss all things Kamala. Aren't there birth issues that prevent her from constitutionally being qualified for the presidency? How do you see this whole Kamala thing playing out? What's really going on behind the curtain?
Well, let me just say this, John. Even when she was the VP candidate with Biden, we had attorneys that had gone through this and done a deep dive and decided that she didn't qualify to be president. But at the time, when we talked with the attorneys and tried to work through this, whether they were going to do a legal challenge, the problem was that the Constitution is supposedly moot on whether a VP can has the same restriction. A reasonable person's response would be, well, if the president has to have that, the person that's the VP in line to be president, you would think would have to have the same standards, qualifications. And there was this argument, well, that might be true, but with the courts as screwed up as they are, they could determine anything about responsibility. So it's probably a waste of time and effort to try and sort it out that way. However, those same attorneys are still in there and ready to go to war if, in fact, the Democrats want to get her to the presidency. Now, the time that and she can be a candidate, but, that's the party that picks her as a candidate. So with that in mind, the powers that be have kind of decided to just stand by to see what happens next. If in fact it's worth the effort, if it looks like she's going to win the election, then they would do their challenges, their legal challenges after the election to stop this from going forward. And that's going to be unsettling to a lot of people. But, let me just add this one thing. You know who had the best research? And I had this from one of the companies that was doing the research, from one of the employees who kind of saw the light and came over to the Republican side and said, I just can't do this anymore. And during the course of Trump's presidency, became a Trump fan. which is that more common than you think. By the way, I was with the advance team for Vance the other day at an event, and we were talking about this. And one of the members of the advance team for VP candidate Vance was a staunch Democrat and a Biden voter, voted for Biden and Kamala, and said, you know what? Somewhere early in there, I realized I just was so wrong when the scales fell from this person's eyes. It was just like, where have I been? What was I thinking? And they've come over to, completely. Person that does cuts my hair, same situation. Cut hair for a lot of the people in media in the location where he's at, was very, very popular. And he was getting really trying to collect data to talk with his clients and listen to a Trump speech. And by the end of the speech, he said, you know what? He didn't say anything I don't agree with. I don't know, what was I thinking? And he started to compare it with things that the crowd he was running with in this kind of media crowd. And he started to say, you know what? These people are crazy. I'm not staying here, and became a super strong Trump supporter. That is a more common story than most people fully realize. So I had one of the people that was inside the camp that was doing some of the legal work in California for, of all people, Nancy Pelosi, knew that Kamala didn't qualify and didn't want to make a big deal of it publicly back then because they wanted Kamala in that position. And the plan was to have an event with Biden, have Kamala be disqualified at the last moment, and decide that to bring peace and to help the party. When she was Speaker of the House, she was going to move right through from the Speaker of the House past the vice presidency to the presidency. The Democrats, Nancy Pelosi specifically, have the goods on Kamala Harris, and all along intended to play that card. They know full well she doesn't qualify. And then the attorneys can pull that trigger whenever they want to. But, if your enemy is, shooting himself in the foot, maybe you let them do it. If they want to play that game, let them have Kamala as far as they want to run it before it gets switched. And then you mentioned her history. It's like the tranny thing, male or female. Well, in this case, is it black, white, purple? What color is she this week? You really had to change her name from Kamala to Chameleon with a K.
More appropriate. More appropriate.
And she's, one week she's, commie in the way she talks and things. The next week she's socialist. The next week she's the greatest, conservative on the planet. It's all for business, and a week later it's take everything away from everybody and give it to, somebody that didn't grow up here, and give it all away.
Talk about pick a lane, as you always say. Talk about pick a lane.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Pick that lane. My gosh, that windy road through the swamp, you might crash into the swamp, get eaten by an alligator if you're not careful. So
Juan, look, there's plenty of things to talk about her policies and the flip-flopping and all the things that you just said. She doesn't make cohesive sentences, and everybody knows what we poke at her because it's just there. It's evident, it's obvious. But when it comes down to it, I'm curious, do the Democrats really want her? Is there a sinister plan behind it? Is this a temporary placeholder for a last minute something or another? You hear in the fake news circles, that we got to be careful. She can win. I even think, was it Joe Rogan? I think Joe Rogan came out and said she may very well win. In my mind, barring another theft, it's not possible she could win. But we should always think we're going to lose, no question about it. And everyone get out and vote. is a separate subject that, and we've talked about this before, Juan. I don't believe we'll be voting for a host of reasons on November 5th. But let's stick to Kamala for a moment. Do you think there's another plan? Is that who they really want? And aren't they circumventing protocols? Aren't there systems to get someone nominated and funded properly? This thing seems to be a train wreck to me. Do you think they have a different plan, whether it's Hillary or Newsom or somebody? Big Mike?
Well, Big Mike has problems too because the legal issues when the law license was given up.
I'd like to see the medical reports when Big Mike runs through the office. I'd like to take a peek at that. The column they check.
Well, and the children, if you want to get right down to it, let's go do the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I say that lightly. Let me stop for a second. I want to be appropriate here.
Mm-hmm.
Obama himself had no part in who birthed him, and it wasn't the person that we've been told. Stanley N. Dunham didn't have Obama. He's been somebody's tool since before he was born. He was marinated in this. I actually pray.
We've lost Juan O'Savin in the middle of the broadcast. There he is. We've got you back. You were discussing the marinating of Barack Obama in prayer.
As I had a call that came
Okay.
in, but since before he was born, manipulated and moved around, and he grew up in that situation. So, at a certain level, he's never all of his life. He's been somehow mentally managed, physically managed, in his heart and soul to be somebody else's tool. The girls, I believe, are in the same boat. Certainly were not the children of Michael. And so there's a question there. Is it their fault that they have any say in it? What are they supposed to do? Jump up and down and reject it right in the middle of their life when they're kids or they're growing up? These are the people that cared for them, raised them, etc. I think we have to go extremely slow there. So when I kind of made the comment, it's with some level of reservation because we don't take any pleasure in pointing that out, and there's nothing they can do about that. We need to focus on the people who would do such things to children to force them to live in that kind of an illusion. And by the way, I know I have a friend who was raised by two gay men who turned out heterosexual, actually pretty good, loves both the people that raised him. But he knew what his circumstance was even from an early age. And I've met both of the guys, and I got to tell you that at a personal level, I actually enjoy their company. They put on a great party. Okay.
And Elton John will be happy to hear that.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to be honest with you. People make a lot of choices in their life, and I'm very direct. They know that I don't think that's God's way. That's what he prefers. I don't think it's the right situation for them individually together. The other side of the coin is, you can go into the heterosexual community and find all sorts of things going on there that are just as wicked and evil or worse than anything happening together. Let's, take care of the beam in your own eye before you start worrying about the splinter in the next person. I'm not waffling on my position on homosexuality or on the transgenderism and stuff like that, and what it's done in our society, and the damage that it's doing to people's lives. But I'm also understanding that, we're all humans in this fight. There, but for the grace of God go I. So some of it God himself has to deal with, and it's a very personal thing. Where it really transgresses horrendously is when the militancy goes out and tries to take advantage of the weak, young children, young people, and to drag them into the lifestyle, or to force them into it, even medically and things like that, to do the brainwashing, etc., just to legitimize what these people have already done on their own, and which my contention would be in many, many cases, not all, but many cases, is some type of homage to their god, Satan, Lucifer, the devil. And even to the point of capturing not just high positions in the corporate world or the political world, where it's a personal choice like that, but to be militant even into the church and to change the practices and the rules within these churches to turn them into captured operations. One of the things that bothered me, I was up in Europe a couple times this year, and especially in England and Scotland and Ireland and Iceland and Greenland. One thing that just stuck out, I couldn't believe it, was to the 90th percentile, it looked to me, the churches had rainbow flags all over them, on the highest places. The demons, the principalities and powers of darkness in high places. It says in high places for a reason. It's not just high office, stature, and like that. The demons, the principalities, like the high on the buildings over the earth. The Baal last week, they wanted to be worshiping Baal on top of the high hills where everybody sees it. And so these flags being flown in the churches, where you've got Sodom and Gomorrah in the history, to then be captured like that. I think that says a lot about not them, but the churchgoers, the rest of the public. Just like it says a lot about the captured nature of the American people. If you're willing to put up with it, you'll get whatever the devil can throw at you. And so when the devil throws out or puts in high office people who have particular bents, we had the lasciviousness of Clinton, and people put up with it. Okay, well, that was an entree position. Then you got the stuff with the tranny a short while later, presenting as a woman. And now to the whole world, you have, even in the sports, there at the Olympics, the pinnacle of the sports world for competition, and you have a man coming in and wrestling with a woman as though he is a woman. And all the world watches the spectacle and accepts the outcome.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to talk about a limited time offer of subscriptions to Patriot.tv and how you can become a member of our Patriot Defenders subscription club and become a member of Patriot.tv. Really, it's America's network. I call it the home of truth. And you can do that for only $9.99 a month. It's a great deal by itself, but what I'm going to walk you through here in these next few seconds is a couple of package deals that we have that are unbelievable. The next membership was the annual membership at $99 that you can save. Right away, you save $20 if you come in at the annual subscription rate. The best deal that I think that people ought to seriously consider is the 2-year membership at $159. And it includes a special edition of my recently released documentary, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. So along with the 2-year membership, the 2-year subscription will send you a DVD combo of the film, plus an option to stream the movie online, as well as exclusive interviews of Tucker Carlson, Devin Nunes, and myself. So go to the home of truth, right? Go to Patriot.tv today, sign up, seriously consider the 2-year subscription rate. It's an unbelievable savings. I think it's a total savings of about $70 from just signing up on a monthly or a annual basis. So thank you very much for your support. Patriot.tv is America's new network. Thank you.
Juan, earlier you mentioned the attorneys during when Kamala was becoming the VP, doing the homework on the birth issues, and that they're standing by, if you will. Do you see this coming to the surface, or do you see her not being the ultimate nominee?
Well, anybody that tells you to know exactly what's going to happen is full of it. The Democrats themselves, and more importantly, the people controlling the Democratic Party, are in disarray right now, and they're reeling to try and get control of the direction that things are going. They've lost control of their future, their fate, and that's something very hateful for them. They didn't have a ready replacement in the wings as the country came against Biden proceeding. And so the next best option to buy time was to go ahead and push Kamala. Whether she stays or not, I think is still in flux. I think we get all the way up to near Election Day, and then there's some kind of drama that throws that all into disarray. I don't know what the reason will be that the election gets stopped at the last minute, but I believe that the election, even though it may have started, gets paused somewhere on the way to completion. And it could be as simple as that, some determination is made legally or otherwise that Kamala's not going forward. And in order to have a fair fight, has there ever been an election where one or the other side ran unopposed in America? Would that be acceptable? Big questions here.
In my mind, Juan, there's only potentially, first off, again, folks, give us a free and fair election. Trump wins in a complete landslide, electoral college, and popular vote, end of conversation, as long as we get out there and vote. Now, having said that, in my mind, I see, if I'm a Democrat and I'm up against the wall as they find themselves, their transgressions against truth in society and the world are coming back at them right now. And so in my mind, it's Newsom who can get some votes. It's Big Mike, who I think would get the most votes, what would be the biggest disaster because it's Big Mike, and that'll come up. And number 3 is, of course, I keep seeing, as you were talking about Kamala potentially being a placeholder, I keep seeing Hillary Clinton peering ahead through a doorway like I'm ready. So you've got Hillary, you've got Newsom, you've got Kamala, and you've got the other name I meant, Big Mike. I don't know if there's anybody else of name recognition, at least comes to my mind, that they would consider at this point. And so I do think you're right. There's so many surprises coming our way. You and I have talked about the type of destruction that may be hitting the streets of America, kinetically in the war and so forth. We have a lot of things going on between now and November. There's talk about a second assassination attempt, God forbid, against our great president. We have a lot going on, but sticking to Kamala, my sense tells me they're putting a lot into it now. All of a sudden there's a rally and there's people dancing and everybody loves her and all the money became available. They seem like they're putting all the eggs in that basket, but I still have underneath it all, I have a feeling that she's not going to be the one. That's just my gut. And I guess folks will have to see how that all plays out. But she clearly isn't qualified, not just constitutionally. And I'm glad that the attorneys are ramped up and ready to go. But she's just not qualified. And what you do is listen to her. Sorry, folks. This is an opinion. This is commentary and analysis. Vote for whoever you choose, but vote wisely. I'm done.
Well, the reality is that Kamala, see, the people that are pulling the strings behind the scenes, remember Putin said that it's not Biden that's running Washington, D.C. It's not Biden that's running America. It's not Obama. It's people you don't even know the name of who are running America from behind the scenes that are puppeteering all these things that are happening. Would it be any different with Kamala? Why do you have to have a weak leader like Biden in the presidency? Because he's controllable, manipulable. He's silly putty. It would be the same thing with Kamala. It was the same thing with Obama. Obama was a creation of the CIA, a creation of Brennan with others controlling Brennan, creating a fake history, maneuvering him to the top. It's been going on for a long time. One of the examples, when I was working Whitewater down in Arkansas, and one of the other people says, well, okay, here's the guy. He supposedly is a law professor teaching students. He's running for the attorney general at the time there in the state, I believe it was. And he's also leading the Carter campaign at the same time back in 76. And so he's doing all these things at the same time. No, he wasn't. That was a manufactured history to create the illusion that he was such a genius that he could do all those things at the same time. That's part of what you'll find in a lot of these made up leaders, especially earlier in their life. So they can decide, oh no, this week I'm this person with that history. The next week I'm this person with that history. Obama, running the law review at Harvard. Over at Columbia, he's a poli-sci student. Excuse me? There was only like 23 people in his class. Michael Medved was one of them, Nationwide Talk host. Michael and all the other students said they never ever once saw Obama in their class. And that's a 4-year class. None of them ever once saw him. Why? Because Columbia University has been being used by 3-letter agencies to create false histories for operatives that they use all over the world at different times out of the farm. So here a false history was created for Obama that, he supposedly qualifies to, do all these amazing, great, important things. No basis in truth. He didn't even attend a class. Nobody ever saw him. 4 years, they never saw him. Didn't know who he was. Very tight, small community at that college. If they can do that, again, that's the lies that we're being cooked with. And they get told over and over and over and over again to where it's, it's accepted reality. Well, it's bullshit. Deep state bullshit. And we're getting leaders put into positions of authority over us that they're not strong. They're puppets on a string. Who's pulling the puppet strings? Those puppeteers want weak, silly putty that they can make sure go to wherever they want and that won't talk out of line. Obama, he did great teleprompter. Amazing teleprompter, okay? And very well trained, very well versed in good teleprompter. Speaking somebody else's story. Now, I will tell you this, too, by the way. Clinton, completely different. Clinton actually knew the data personally. He could read a spreadsheet like nobody's business. He could look at budget stuff and go right through to the heart of it with exacting precision. He actually was a pretty doggone smart guy in a lot of places where it counted. And he didn't need a teleprompter to give good speech. Okay, he actually had it. Um, he was a little different, but then again, he was also a big time family member. They wanted him up there. Why? His real father uh, was a Rockefeller and governor of Arkansas. Um, he had a history in the family, vacations every year with the Rockefeller family for most of his life up there in next to the Grand Tetons up there. And so, an accepted member. He's a different animal completely, but these other ones, they're just figureheads. And that's why Putin said, Biden's not running DC. Do you think Kamala would be any different? No. If she got up there, and by the way, the people that might come after her in the legal arena to challenge her for being president, well, we have all the law and rules and everything else, but you got Obama when you didn't have a clear birth history. Turns out, really, his dad was American, but the mother was somebody else, and it was a flip. You thought it was about the mother, it was about the dad, who the real dad is. The mother was a young girl. He was born up at the Peace Arch Hospital in Vancouver, BC. So, kind of a Brit operation, by the way. It wasn't even his original birthday. He was born in the spring, and they chose August 4th as his birthday because that was the Queen Mother's birthday. Different groups, I call them corn. In the intelligence agencies, they mark different activities and operations with certain numbers and symbology and like that. And so that was this fingerprint that he was a Brit creation asset out of their operations. And
Let me clarify something, Ron. Sorry to interrupt you. You know what I usually do. Where was Barack Obama born?
Peace Arch Hospital, Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Wow. Okay. So
The mother, in the in early June, showed up at University of Washington. Came over from Hawaii, showed up at University of Washington, and signed up for fall classes, wearing a sundress, kind of a cover thing over a suit, and was going to go. Had told friends she was going down to the Arboretum to canoe. Which they have a boathouse. There's a movie that just came out about the rowing stuff from University of Washington from I think the 20s or 30s, and so you kind of saw some of the scenery in there. They had canoe rentals down there in that period, and she and someone else were going canoeing in the Arboretum. So when she signed up for classes, that was what she was going to go do with a friend. Others that saw her says, "Yeah, no way she was pregnant a day when we saw her." And then she suddenly shows up less than 2 months later, supposedly had a baby August 4th. And then when she shows up for classes late September, she's got a baby that's rolling over and trying to crawl. And they're like, yeah, no, this baby, and it would leave a dump, that was, a much bigger, older baby. That baby was planted with her. She went up and picked it up, brought it back down, and tried to pass it off as true. This is what's done in these intelligence agencies' operations. And then certain bloodline children, they are preserved for use within those family operations. They keep track of their own. That's what the book by Carol Quigley is all about. Tragedy and Hope. Carol Quigley wrote about the fact that these bloodline families have, it's a tough word, but bastard babies, where they supposedly are fatherless or something like that, and the fathers are exactly known. And similar situations with some of the mothers and children of theirs. And then they keep track of these bloodlines so that they can preserve and maintain them down the road. And it's a very upfront common practice. So Carol Quigley talked about that at length in his book. It's a long, grinding tome to read, but it's their history, their way, and that's why he wrote it. And in fact, Bill Clinton honored Carol Quigley at his inauguration as his mentor. He said the person that he owed the presidency to when he won was Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope. So that's how high the credentials were for the work he did, and helping Bill understand his place in the families and the operations. And by the way, Bill didn't seek him out. His dad made sure that Quigley became his mentor, so he understood his place in the pecking order within this global elite that are running the world, that are subverting their positions of authority through fraudulent elections.
Folks, nothing is as it seems. Here we are learning that Bill Clinton is Rockefeller descent, while President Trump had stated way back in the day that Obama didn't qualify because of Kenya or birth issues. Trump turns out to be right. He still didn't qualify because it was Canada. Now this Kenya thing, I don't know, how that story came.
It's a red herring. That's not where Barack Obama was born.
Okay.
It's like President Kennedy at the assassination. You don't have one shooter, you got, half a dozen. You don't have half a dozen theories, you have 100.
Right.
And every time you turn around, there's another new latest twist vibe theory. Why? Because it muddies the waters, it convolutes things so far, you can't tell heads nor tails, up or down, left or right. And in fact, that's the whole point. All of these things going on in our society are intended to make it impossible for us to be able to pick out the truth from a lie. And eventually you're so saturated, you're so pickled in so many different lies that you can't find your way to the truth at any price. That's what the devil wants. And in fact, is to a great extent achieved. I saw something that Richard Dreyfuss did the other day where he did a little presentation. He had a book coming out. And I haven't been a great fan of his politics like that. He says he's leftist, conservative, liberal, all sorts of things all over the map. But he said something that I thought was important. People don't understand the Constitution. They don't understand the Bill of Rights. They've lost their bearings. And without your bearings, you're listless, you're vulnerable, you're going to crash your world, your life. You have to have some measures, something to go by. And for us as Americans, what the people alive in this country believed had to be done in the early 1700s and coming up to the middle, in a world where countries were coming off the rails. And remember, France was coming into its own revolution and killing each other. The founding fathers' most important thing was to come up with an agreed upon set of rules as the basis, the backbone around which we could build a nation. And at the core of that was the Bill of Rights. That's the guts. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We, the people, this is what this country was built around, not an elite, not a King George. America has lost its core in many ways because the schools don't teach it to the children. Civic rights, civic responsibilities, which go with rights, used to be absolutely mandatory in the schools. And in order to teach it, even with a cheat sheet, you needed to understand it. Teachers needed to know this stuff. Today, we don't have that many teachers that even understand the Bill of Rights. If you get right down to it, they don't get it, let alone the Constitution. The reason these things are there, they're not being taught anymore. So I tip my hat to Richard Dreyfuss for even raising these issues and saying them. Look, we might not agree on 80% of the politics side, but we can agree on this basis for even coming together. You got to have a constitution. You got to have rules for everybody that we all understand and agree on. If you don't pass that along to the next generation, we lose America. And we got to get back to some core basis of understanding between each other that allows us to move forward. We don't have that right now. It's going away. We do have a candidate that more and more agreement is on, is the one who still stands for something in that history. And then people have educated themselves over the last couple of years, more and more understanding these things, but it's not being pervasive to the younger generation the way it's being taught. And so we could lose it. I think we're not going to, but that's the contest we're in. The devil wants us in confusion. He wants it to be chaotic. He wants us to be in division, fighting each other. Out of the chaos of us fighting each other comes their world order. They dominate, they rule. And their plan is to wipe us out, to have, 75% of America dead by the end of 2025. That's what the Deagle report says. That's what the, whatchamacallit out there in Georgia Guidestones was trying to tell us, 13 out of 14 people have to die. There's a lot of that going around. The whole green movement is about reducing the population on the planet. Well,
It's in Rockefeller's memoirs to leave about 600 million of us back in the day.
Well, remember Prince Philip, the Queen's husband. Prince Philip said that what he wanted to come back as in the afterlife was a germ that would destroy humans so it could return the planet back to its pre-human condition. I'm telling you, these people are literally clinically mad, clinically insane, criminally mad and insane in many cases. And that's the fight that we have actually before us right now to save America. And as Richard Dreyfuss said, for the next generation. The kids are what's losing it. A lot of us are getting long enough in the tooth. We've had beautiful lives. We've done lots of things that we got to see our dreams be important and like that. Even getting to see your kids and society grow up, grandkids and like that. But in the Boy Scout tradition, Cub Scout tradition, leave your campsite better than you found it. The reality is, this generation that won the Great War, the war to end all wars, at the very tail end of your life on this world, before you graduate and go into the next, at the very tail end, you're watching the same people take your children and grandchildren to a destructive war. We're on the verge of nuclear war in Central Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Nuclear war. Do you have any comprehension what that means? And oh, by the way, forget nuclear. You've killed 500,000 people in Ukraine already. You've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands injured. You have 5 million displaced right there in Central Europe and millions more spread across the world, including here in the U.S. You've got, I was with one of the leaders out of Sudan the other day, having a conversation on the situation there. They've lost 500,000 people in 14 months in the war in Sudan. You've got this Mideast situation, and it's far from done. It's going to continue to expand out, and we haven't even got into an Asian conflict yet. These monsters want to cause disruption all over the world till our attention, like a ping pong ball, we can't, we're back and forth, up and down. Everything is moving so fast to where we can't get our bearings. We can't get our mind straight. And in that world, they win. They're 5 minutes ahead of you every time they make a decision. You show up and they've already got the decision on the way. You just have to go along for the ride. They see clearly because they're the ones that are knocking everything around. They know exactly what you're going to be facing in a few moments because they're the ones rocking the boat.
Mm-hmm.
They're steady on the boat because they're the ones doing the rocking. We're the ones that are trying to get our sea legs. That's the moment that we're in.
Well, folks, Juan, we've got to wrap the show up. This has been very engaging. I encourage everyone to share this program. We're talking about revealing truths. We're talking some of the things we've learned here. Some of us have learned. Some of us are being reminded of. We've got invented lives and characters and people, largely put together by the CIA. We've got Bill Clinton,
includes Kamala Harris.
Which includes Kamala Harris, whose parents owned lots of slaves in Jamaica, who's not black. She's an Indian American. You've got Bill Clinton tied to being Rockefeller descent. You've got Barack Obama being born in Canada.
And by the way, Bill Clinton's dad was Winthrop Rockefeller, by the way. I didn't mention his first name, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a quick 1 hour broadcast, folks. Tune in each and every week and check out some of the previous shows as well. We've got Barack Obama's kids as not his kids. We've got Michelle Obama as Big Mike, and we know that, well, you speculate about Joan Rivers maybe having paid a price for that reveal. You can go on and on by listening to this program of what we've just covered.
Let me just add one quick thing, John. I apologize for interrupting, but as Roseanne Barr said at the Trump rally a while back, you got so much bullshit out there. At this point, forget the bullshit. Kill the fucking bull. This monster that's destroying the world. That's our mission right now, and this is the guy that's leading the mission. Okay, he's out there on the field of play, representing all of us. He's not there alone. We're there with him. He represents us, but you got to get rid of the deep state bull. Mm-hmm. You got to get rid of Baal Moloch, the golden calf, whatever. We have to do that as a society. So I apologize for interrupting you, but I just wanted to add that one little thing.
No, it's all important, and I appreciate it. Listen, folks, God doesn't make mistakes. God chose Donald Trump. God gave us free will. Use it wisely. We elected him not once but twice, and we'll get the job done again. And I want to remember, folks, the executioner's face is often always well hidden, as the truths have been. And now in this great awakening from dark to light, we are waking up and seeing these truths. I want to thank you, Juan. Very engaging, very insightful, reservoir, wealth of information, historical and current things that are important for us to make sense of the madness. So thank you all for joining us today. Sign up for free. Follow my work at johnmichaelchambers.com. Remain informed, empowered, and connected. We are at war, so we need to, as Juan has been talking about, unite in truth. That's what we need to do. And remember, where we go one, we go all. Make no mistake about that. Stay safe out there, and may God be with you.